So now let's take a quick look at a play that's kind of hit or miss against man coverage. It's really disappointing that it's fallen down the tier of man beating routes so far, but the C routes from Corner Strike, you played previous Maddens, they used to be really good against man coverage. They're still good in this game, but it's not as consistent, right? You have to be very precise of the timing and the pass lead, or else you'll find yourself in trouble. But I do want to make sure that you guys are aware of how to throw these C routes. I definitely think it's worth taking a look, at least a couple times a game. How is my opponent playing me on these C routes? And see if they're going to be a tool for you to really abuse against somebody who just sits in man coverage. So let's call Corner Strike. We'll come out and cover one hole press. And I'm going to use the same motion. I really like. I do love this motion with the tight end. Now I can put him on a slant. You can put your Y receiver on a streak or a drag or whatever you really want to do. We're just going to put him on a streak. We're not really going to be focusing on him right now. I want to focus on this right of screen matchup with the C route. And you'll see that it doesn't get pressed. So that's actually pretty good. You have to throw this kind of early. You really need to practice this throw, just like with that corner route. The ball has to come out a little bit earlier, right? So I'm starting to throw this ball as he's making his last cut, literally before he even gets his hips turned around, his head turned around. I'm already throwing that ball. And that's how you should throw it every single time. Now, there are going to be times where maybe your opponent shades underneath. You need to be aware of that. Like, you need to really pay attention to the leverage of the defensive back. If they shade underneath, then you need to immediately click on and try to use your catch it. So this is a shade underneath. I'll show you what I mean. Right, and that was actually, we're fortunate it lobbed right there because you see the leverage of the defensive back. He was right underneath there. That's the hard part about Madden 23 is one, you have to be very precise, and two, it's not going to consistently beat man coverage. If they shade underneath, then he stays on his inside hip, and it's almost impossible to get separation. You're going to have to go for an aggressive catch. But if they shade underneath, you also have your streak to the slot. That's one of the reasons I do like the streak. And even if they shade underneath against this slant, it's not always going to play it very well. See right here, he kind of got beat pretty bad, and I know he ran into somebody, but if you put if you like high point bullet pass that or precision lead that to the outside, that amount of separation that he got will be enough to fit that ball in. So I'm referring to this type of spacing right here, right? Say this guy wasn't here and we continued along the field with this exact type of spacing, I could throw this ball with a free form out into this area of the field, probably in a higher pass lead. You don't really want to throw out like one of those lower low and away pass leads because he can undercut it. Like a high and away pass lead, you can create, it's created enough separation where you can fit that ball in. If you find your opponent is shading like over the top a lot, this is actually a really good route to utilize. A lot of people shade over the top because they're just really afraid of getting beat deep, and this is a way to punish them for a good amount of yards. And that was probably one of the worst, one of the worst animations of all time. I may have thrown that a little too early. Don't tell nobody. So right here, there we go. You can come back, and I can't believe he dropped that, but you can come back and cut it off, right? Almost throw it like it's a curl route. It's a little bit harder to tell if they shade over the top or underneath in corner strike, simply because the route doesn't get pressed either way, and your tight end isn't going to get pressed either. But like I said at the onset of this video, this is not the most consistent man beating route, but it's worth taking a look at. Every once in a while, a couple times a game, to see how you match up with your opponent's corners on this C route. Now, obviously, there's a backside C route, it's same concept as a front side, or the wide side C route. But you want to stay, like I said, to the wide side more often than not. You can get creative with your halfback, you can wheel, you can out route. A lot of times, the slant route will end up forcing the user to cheat it inside a little bit, and then it leaves the wheel route a little bit more open. But that's Corner Strike, guys. Again, use it with caution for sure.